In the previous video, we saw how we could create an item in the library referencing a component file, in this case, a shared or master component file that will be responsible for initiating the actual document package process in the interview. So now that we have an item in the library to do that, if we were to click on Assemble, assuming everything is completed at this point, we would go through the interview process associated with that document package. But that's the next step, is actually making sure that we have that interview set up appropriately so that we'll be able to ask all of the questions necessary for any documents that are selected as part of the process. That's going to involve getting into the component manager. So with this item now highlighted in the library, I can click on the component manager button, which gives me access to the component manager tool. And of course, that's going to open up component manager and give me access to this component file called master.cmp. Now I'm going to go to component file properties, and then I'm going to go to the interview tab, and you can see as things stand right now, this component file is set to use a default interview. Now, we're not going to talk too much about the difference between default interviews and custom interviews here. That's covered in another video sequence. So we're going to presume, for our purposes here, that you know the difference between default interviews and custom interviews. But what we want to do in this situation is switch from a default interview to a custom interview. So I'm going to uncheck this box, and then I'm going to check the Use Custom Interview box. And that, of course, gives me access to this drop down or the Browse button here, in which I either select an existing computation or create an interview computation. And that's what I'm going to do here to set up this document package. I'm going to click on the Editor button, and that brings up the computation editor. And I might call this particular computation, which again is going to be functioning as a custom interview, something like this: document package interview. And then, of course, what I need to do here in the script is set up a series of ask instructions and some other things, as you'll see, to control the interview and what appears in the interview depending on what I select. Now, one of the first things we'll probably want to do as part of this process is give users the ability to select which documents they would like to assemble. And typically what we'll do is we'll set up a multiple choice variable to do that. And as you saw in the first video in this series, we had a multiple choice question at the very beginning of the interview asking which documents we wanted to select. So that gives users full control over what documents get assembled. A variation here that we're not going to cover in too much detail involves setting up a document package so that based on how certain questions are answered, certain documents are produced automatically. That's a more of an automated process, but that's certainly a valid document package scenario. We're going to give users control over which documents are assembled in this particular document package. I need to create now or reference, if I already have a variable created, some sort of multiple choice variable that's going to present the different options, and those options, of course, are going to represent the different documents available for selection. And I can do that here easily enough within the computation editor. Of course, I could go back out to component manager to do this as well, but I'm going to click on the new component button and indicate that I want to create a multiple choice variable. And I'll simply call this document selection. Now, I could eventually put this variable in a dialogue with other variables or questions that'll come up in the interview. But as you'll see, I'm just going to have this question come up as a separate item in the interview. And because of that, I'm going to utilize this title field so that this will look right in the interview outline and in the title bar of the dialog view when the user's on this particular question. The prompt, of course, is what appears immediately above the answer field, and I might put in the prompt field, select the document, maybe parenthetically put an S there, you would like to assemble. Okay, and then for my options, I am going to and again, this is corresponding to the different types of documents that I could assemble, so I need to reference the different templates I have available. So for my first option, I might put trust or master trust, whatever you want to put there, will, and then the final one would be financial power of attorney. Now, of course, if this were a full-blown comprehensive estate planning system, there would likely be more options listed here for the other kinds of documents that you might assemble. For simplicity's sake, we'll restrict it here to just the 3 that we have referenced in the library. Now, you will want to take care to change the select property here from select one only to select all that apply, giving the users the ability, of course, to select multiple options. So with that variable now ready to be created, I'll go ahead and click on OK. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to use an ask instruction in this computation script to tell HotDocs to bring that document selection variable or question up first in the interview. You can, of course, use the ask dialog or database instruction model here, but technically speaking, we're not going to be adding or asking a dialog component, at least not yet. And of course, we're not going to be asking a database, but you can, if you want to just type in the word ask in all caps, reference a single variable here. I could have dragged it up here from this bottom box, but typing it in is often faster and easy enough. And now I have an ask instruction for that document selection multiple choice variable. Again, this is covered in more detail in setting up custom interviews, but the order in which you have ask instructions in the template will be the order in which they're typically asked in the interview process. And we can, of course, make asks conditional. In other words, we can have ask instructions within if logic within a script, and you'll see all that as we flesh that out. But this is the first part of the process, setting up the actual interview computation. And as you can see, we are officially underway with a single ask instruction for that document selection multiple choice question.